Here's more interrogation secrets of why they failed to crack Jodi Arias into confessing murder. Find out next. Welcome back to the More Channel Shakers. Derek Van Shake here. This is a moron video from a video on my main channel about Jodi Arias' interrogation and how that interrogator failed to get a confession out of Jodi Arias and what he could have done differently to get a confession out of her. In that main channel video, I talked a lot about Jodi Arias' guilty body language, broke down all the interrogation tactics that were used against Jodi Arias. Some of those interrogation tactics that interrogator used were actually effective. However, as we saw in my main channel video, that interrogator failed to sell her on confessing and why confessing is better than fighting it in court. But what we're going to do in this moron video is talk about some of the interrogation tactics that I left out in the main channel video, some of the body language that I left out in the main channel video that I didn't have time to include. I made a little list of the things we're going to cover. So now, let's get started. The first thing that we're going to cover is the power of unexpected gifts. If you notice in the beginning of the interrogation, when the interrogator was taking off Jodi's handcuffs, he asked her if she wanted some water.
Can I get you a bottle of water? Thank you.
She says yes, and then he gives her water at the table.
Just water for you.
A better approach to increase the goodwill is not to ask her if she wants water. Giving her water, and when you give her water, you say to her, hey, you were in the back of the police car for a little bit. You were sitting in this interrogation room for quite some time. Here, have some water. It's the presentation and what is thoughtful behind the presentation of giving Jodi water. And it creates that psychological effect that he cares and is thinking of her. And for her to feel like that interrogator is empathizing with me and can feel how I feel and understands the dilemma and how hard it is to be arrested for the first time. A guilty suspect wants to feel initial empathy from that interrogator. And if she feels he's providing initial empathy, then surely he's going to be providing empathy when she tells her whole story and the truth of what actually happened at her side of the story. As I say in my main channel videos, guilty suspects of murder often feel alone and misunderstood. So what do they actually want to do more than anything? It's to talk about what they did so they don't feel alone, but they don't want to talk about it with just anyone because they don't want to feel misunderstood still. They want to talk about what they did to someone who can empathize with them. Another thing that Detective Flores didn't do so well right off the bat was creating that initial rapport with Jodi. He didn't.
Do you remember me?
Of course I do.
I traveled all the way up here to come talk to you. Because, I've been working on Travis's case ever since it happened.
There was no initial signs of small talk, asking how she is. Is this your first time in handcuffs? Yeah. He could tell a funny story about handcuff training in police academy or something like that. Ideally, anything that will humanize them both with a commonality. But just overall, just creating some kind of initial rapport. That is so critical. I think a lot of times interrogators and detectives are afraid to get into rapport with the suspect. This person did such a horrible thing. I'm not like you. I'm not going to show any relatability to you. You're terrible for committing this crime. You have so much evidence against you. I'm not going to, build you up and showing that I like you and then throw you in jail. It goes contrary to everything that they feel. I'm not like you. You're a bad person. I've noticed a lot of interrogators that seem very apprehensive to get into rapport with a suspect that they surely know is guilty. And it's a shame because they'll never get as many suspects to confess to them. Because typically a guilty suspect is not going to tell their deepest and darkest secret to someone who they believe hates them. Would you? If you believe someone hates you, would you be like, okay, I have something to confess? Why would you ever tell someone who you feel hates you anything that personal? You're not. And if you notice throughout, Detective Flores really just came across as not liking Jodi. Confess. Look at all this evidence. You are jealous and you're obsessed. But if you notice, the most effective interrogations are usually not the ones where the interrogator is 100% the whole time going after the guilty suspect. Those types of interrogations don't happen anymore, where you can just have a hard-hitting interrogator 100% the whole time, just convince the person just to say whatever the interrogator wants them to say and then just throw the person's ass in jail. That doesn't happen anymore since really Miranda rights. It doesn't matter how much evidence they have, the suspect has to want to confess. And that's the whole new way of doing it, of getting the suspect to want to confess and selling them on confessing, of why confessing is their best option. And I want to be very clear, it's very important to have bad cop. They have to experience at least some bad cop to ever confess, because otherwise there's just really no pressure. Okay, I'll believe everything you say. Oh, really? That's how it happened? Okay. Well, there is this evidence against you. You sure you didn't do it? No, I didn't do it. Okay, well, I guess that's it. You really need that extra force in there from bad cop to get the suspect to move at all. But he was just calling her, you must be jealous and obsessed if you committed this crime, if you confess to this.
Jealousy issue? You are absolutely obsessed. Obsessed is the word that they use. That's the word I hear from everybody.
As opposed to saying, hey, right now it looks really bad. All the evidence is pointing right at you that you did this. And combined, a lot of people are saying that you were jealous and obsessed with Travis. So unless you want that jealous, obsessed, cold-blooded killer label applied to you, we need to hear your side of the story. Because right now it looks terrible. What happened, Jodi? One of the most important things to remember is that it doesn't matter what the suspect tells themselves to rationalize what they did. Whatever they want to believe, however they rationalize it, whatever they want to say to the public, that doesn't matter. That's all up to them. But just get the damn confession. Another mistake that the interrogator made with Jodi Arias is sitting directly across from Jodi Arias in what's called an adversarial position. And of course, as it suggests, it creates adversarial feelings with the two parties involved and not, hey, we're just working together to come to the truth. But the feelings that adversarial position naturally create, especially when one side says one thing, the other side says another, is naturally going to just create more butting of heads. And of course, the better positioning is for him to sit kind of next to Jodi Arias. Is it more productive to have two interrogators in the interrogation room instead of just one playing both good and bad? It depends on the interrogator, how good the interrogator is in playing both good and bad cop. For example, with this case, I think this interrogator was a pretty good bad cop, but he wasn't a very good cop. I've heard some girls ask me this, and I think it's very relatable to this case. Why do guys date crazy girls? I think every guy has dated a crazy girl at one point or another. Just one of those girls that just gets very obsessive, very jealous, not someone you want to really have a long-term relationship with. You know that. Just why do you even hang around with her? But here's the honest truth reason. I'm just going to be real. I'm going to be 100 with y'all, okay? The crazy girls are usually a little better in bed. I could just see my phone blowing up with like all the girls I've ever dated, and they're all being like, "Were you talking about me?" No, I wasn't talking about you. Shit, I'm going to get in so much trouble on this channel. That's why we mess around with them, all right? Just being real. And that's why Travis probably messed around with her. It was like, I'm not going to marry you. You crazy. You're obsessive. You're jealous. Get away from me. But hey, and that seems to be what happened.
Obviously, you weren't boyfriend, girlfriend anymore. But you were still having a sexual relationship. And truly, he didn't think that you were marriage material.
Any girls that are getting on me for saying that, I'm going to ask you, why do you girls date those asshole guys? Being real, being 100, there you go. That's all we got. Now for your comments. Dankdrup says, let's say for a second I did do it, in quotation marks.
Okay, let's say for a second that I did. And I say, I did it. I mean...
Yeah, she was basically saying like, hey, I kind of did it, but, sell me on confessing here. I need to confess clearly because look at all this evidence is just overwhelmingly against me. Tell me, why should I confess? She was literally asking. And the interrogator didn't really understand that's what she was asking.
The motive is there. The jealousy issue.
Angie Barth writes, never ever allow yourself to be questioned without a lawyer, even if you are 100% innocent. Never. Whew. Personally, this is how I would play it. If I am called a suspect, I would want a lawyer, period. That's me. If they just want to talk to me at the police station and they don't really think I'm a suspect at that time, then I would talk until they start to get in their minds that I'm a suspect. Then I'll be like, hey, you thinking I'm a suspect? No, stop this. I want a lawyer. That's what I would do personally. What about you guys? Teacher Explained writes, I wish you would analyze the interrogation tape of someone who is innocent to compare body position, tone, questions they asked the reporter, etc. Maybe that'll be a future video, but yeah, I have to find a good one. Michael Terrell writes, her and Chris Watts would be a match made in hell. They're both crazy as hell. Yeah, pretty much. But then here's the question. Who's going to kill who first, right? Maybe you'll be both at the same time and then rid the world of two terrible people. Maybe. Sessa22 writes, my dad was a cop. He drilled one thing into our heads over and over. Cops lie. Don't tell them anything. A lot of you know I'm a big car guy. I have a Lamborghini. I follow people on YouTube that have Lamborghinis and modified their Lamborghinis and all the car people, the car community on YouTube. I'm kind of in that car community a little bit on the side. It's kind of like my hobby. That nice of a contrast. Some of those cops that pull over supercars, they just seem to lie, saying things that are clearly not the law. It's just completely bogus that they just say things and just seems that they can just get away with it. There's a Bugatti Veyron owner in Las Vegas, Nevada, and he got pulled over by a cop and he was, maybe just maybe acting a little bit reluctant. That cop wasn't going to have anything of it. Took him out of his Bugatti Veyron, handcuffed him, threw him in the back of his police car, and the bogus extent of the charges that he threw at this Bugatti Veyron owner were just completely ridiculous. It was like an unlawful use of a horn.
My 7 charges.
Okay, read them all.
Unlawful use of a horn.
And of course, not all cops are like that. A lot of cops pull over supercars, and sometimes just to see the car and be like, hey, just slow down a little bit. But sometimes you're going to run into a cop that isn't having a good day, and you're just going to be the butt of his bad day. Give this video a thumbs up so I know that you like these interrogation breakdowns and I know to make more. If you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button now because we don't want you to miss out on more on videos from body language and investigative videos on my main channel. And I'll see you at the top.